taking the whole hour, trust me. I'm like minutes maybe.
Well, good morning and welcome to Surge, our Young Professionals group. We are happy to have Maureen Moore with Energy United to give us some great tips for better communication. So Maureen is on our board of directors. She's on our executive committee. She is our vice chair for membership. And Maureen and I work together a lot, and she's also in Rotary, so she's very engaged, and she probably belongs to every chamber within a 9-county radius. So she's super busy, and we appreciate you being here today, Maureen. So I'm going to hand it off to you.
Great. Well, good morning, ladies. How are you?
Good.
Well, great.
Before you get started, do you want me to read your bio that you sent?
Oh, no, that's okay.
Okay.
You don't have to be that official. You're so sweet. No, but I'll just tell you a little bit about myself if that's okay. So I think I've met most of you, but a few of you are new faces, so I'm excited to get to know you. But let's see. So I work as communications manager for Energy United, the electric company. I basically do their public relations, community relations, and all the communications for our employees and for our members. We're in 19 counties across North Carolina, so it keeps me very busy, but I love what I do. Like Shannon said, I'm pretty involved in the Greater Statesville Chamber, love it. We doing some really great things, even during the last several months when there's been so many challenges with COVID. Hopefully you ladies, just like today, have been taking advantage of some of the virtual opportunities that Shannon's been pulling together for us and keeping us all connected and engaged. I am also a member of the Rotary Club of Greater Statesville. We meet on Thursdays at 12 noon. So if any of you ever want to join, come as my guest, would love to have you, because I know we just already figured out we're going to have Girls on the Run come speak, so that'll be terrific. And if you want to speak on behalf of your organization or anyone else in this group, just reach out to me. I'd love to have you come. We're always looking for great speakers. So a little bit about me. So I grew up way up north in Buffalo, New York, where it was very cold for several months out of the year. After high school, I decided that was enough for me, so I moved out of Buffalo and started my career with a 2-year business degree and went into banking. I worked for a large bank up in Buffalo called Buffalo Savings Bank, and it got transferred to New York, to Manhattan. So I moved there for a short while. And then I transitioned and went into sales and worked for Procter and Gamble. They're out of Cincinnati, Ohio. So I did that for like 5 years, sold a lot of their products. I was in the packaged soap and detergent division. So my father used to tell me I'm just like the product I sell, Ivory, 99 4/10% pure. You're supposed to laugh, ladies. That was funny. So it was great. That was 5 years of my the second chapter of my career. And then I had like this young mid-year crisis at 30-ish and decided I wanted to go into education and be a teacher. So somewhere along the way, by the way, I got my bachelor's degree when I was working at the bank. And then I had to go back and get my bachelor's and certification and my master's degree in education, which I did, and moved to Massachusetts. And then I went into teaching. So it's kind of interesting because I actually started teaching college classes, sales and marketing. And then my degree was in elementary and middle school. So I taught for a couple years in Massachusetts. And then I moved back to New York and taught there for a year or two. And then by some bizarre circumstances, moved down to Raleigh, Durham, North Carolina. How many of you have been over to Raleigh, Durham? Thumbs up. Most of us, yeah, right? So great area of the state. Lived over there for 3 years and worked in Durham public schools. And at that time, my principal said, you need to get into school administration. So I did. So I started at UNC Chapel Hill on my master's in school administration, and ended up transferring to UNC Charlotte. That's how I got over here. I was supposed to be here for just 1 year while I was doing my second year in my internship, and then go back to Durham. But that didn't work out because in the 1 year that I was here in, I think I was in Mooresville, Davidson at the time, exit 30, I met who's now my husband. So I ended up staying here, never went back to Durham. And we got married and we lived here for 2 or 3 years. I ended up working as a principal for Lake Norman Elementary, Lake Shore, Troutman, and then they pulled me up to central office, and I did something called public information officer, served as the PR person, and did that for a couple of years, loved it. And then my husband and I decided to move down to Tampa, Florida. So not too far, Sarah, from where you are right now in your virtual world. And we loved it down there. And we moved down there because both of our aging parents were down in Florida and having health issues, but not a bad place to go, right? So we ended up staying there for almost 8 years. And I worked for the school system down there as public information officer. And then I transitioned to a private Catholic university, and I did their PR for 4.5, almost 5 years. And then in 2015, I moved back here to North Carolina. And ever since I've been back here, I've been working, doing the PR for Energy United. So there you go. So if you counted all those little career changes, there's about 5 of them. I'm done being a lifetime student, I call it, because I think I have 5 different degrees, 6 maybe. It's crazy, right? But it allowed me to make all these different changes in my career. So it's kind of neat because, you know, today I'm going to talk with you a little bit about communications. And it's kind of interesting because all my jobs, all my roles, I think I've somehow or another, you know, being a communicator has been crucial to the role I've been in, being hopefully working on being a good communicator, especially in the last several years of my career. But, you know, when you look back to go teaching and why my superintendent pulled me up to the office to be the communications PR person, and he said, Maureen, because that's what you've been doing in the schools. You've been out there building partnerships for your schools and getting donations and sponsors. And I really realized, wow, I guess in all of our lives and careers where you ladies all work, right? Communications is such a big part of what we do. And if we're not good at communicating, what happens? Usually things fall apart, right? Or you run into more challenges than you wanted to. So I just wanted to take the next few minutes here, 15, 20 minutes to talk with you about just some high level basic things, but even though they're basic, they're so important. And I've had some real challenges because I've had to learn through the years what being a good communicator means. So you ready to hear a couple of them? Okay, so let's flip to the next screen. And
Hold on. There we go.
okay. So
Is this the right screen, Maureen?
that's perfect. I intentionally didn't say a word because I'm going to ask you, did I just communicate something to you? And how did I do it? I wasn't going to say a word until Shannon made me respond, but what am I saying to you right now? Shout it out, take off your mutes. I'm saying, what am I saying, ladies?
Good morning.
Good morning, exactly. So what type of communication is this right here? You looked at it, you read it, so it's what? Oh, ladies, grab your coffee. You need some coffee. Oh, right? It's visual. I didn't say a word, but hopefully you guys got the message. Oh my God, good morning. Wishing you a really great day. I picked cute little puppies, the rainbow. Sometimes we can represent ourselves and our feelings and what we're trying to communicate through images and pictures. So, you know, we don't think of that sometimes, but we do in life all the time, especially now in our virtual world where we're using so many PowerPoints like today in Zoom meetings. Okay, so good morning. We're going to jump to the next screen. So what does communications mean to you? So Hannah, I'm going to pick on you. What does communications mean to you? When you think the word communications, what do you think?
I usually think of like teamwork and like building relationships and like learning more about other people. But then I also think of just like general success, because if you don't communicate, you can't be successful if you're working with people. And just kind of like any type of communication, emailing, calling, texting, whatever it might be.
Yep, exactly. That awesome. All right, perfect lead to the next screen. So Hannah just hit on a few of these ways of communications. I found this visual and I loved it because look what it shows. How can we, so many different ways, and this is not all the ways we communicate. The little envelope, that's the email icon, right? Old fashioned, how many of you ever write a note these days? Old fashioned pen, paper, little note cards. Raise your hand if you still do little notes.
I do.
Glad to see that, yay, because doesn't it like brighten up your day if you get like a little thank you card in the mail from someone, right? Because we just don't do it like we used to because we're emailing everything. Now don't get me wrong, I'm a big emailer. Shannon knows that, a few of you know that. I email probably 500 emails a day in my job. But the old-fashioned pen and paper and thank you notes, just think about it once in a while if you want to, I know birthday cards too, they've become kind of outdated. We're all doing the e-cards, but boy, I love it my birthday time when I get tons of cards and I can paste them all over and put them all over my family room. It's like something to be said about it, another form of communication. The telephone, the newspaper. Now, again, that's changed in our world of communications. Thumbs up, how many of you read a newspaper at all, virtually or hard copy? Okay, how many of you read it hard copy? Hands up. How many of you read it e-copy? Online, yep. Okay, so that's kind of evolved. So, you see the icon of the cell phone. Oh my gosh, you talk about a way of communicating. So this is really gonna date me because no, I don't know what your parameters are for this group, 30 or 40, but either way, I don't qualify as a young professional. But back in my days of being a young professional, I didn't even have a cell phone. When I worked for P&G and when I worked for the bank, oh my God, I remember getting my first cell phone. I think it was in the late 80s. I was dating this guy and it was like a huge deal. My cell phone was like this big. It was like 12 inches high and this wide and it looked like a big walkie-talkie. But that's how I communicated. When I started my career, my first degree, do you want to know how I had to do my papers? Seriously, electronic typewriter. I didn't get my first computer, a PC, until 1984 when I started working at the bank up in New York. And I swore at the time, because I was only 20 something years old, I was tiny back then, that damn PC weighed more than I did. That up. It was like literally like a suitcase. But that was like such a big deal of a huge advancement in communications back in the 80s to have a PC, even if it weighed 94 pounds, it was amazing. It changed the world. And now, what, they're 14 ounces or whatever they are. So I thought this was just a great visual because it kind of showed, what's that the bubble there with the dots, thinking in our head. That's a form of communication too, with yourself, thinking about maybe how you're going to verbally express yourself to someone. So lots and lots of different ways to communicate. Let's jump to the next one and really think about communication. Again, how do you communicate? Misty, tell us what's in an average day for you. How do you communicate with your colleagues, with your family, with your friends? What are one or two ways you communicate?
All the above, all those. Like with colleagues and clients, it's mostly email and phone call. We do have a text app where we can text from our landline. So we do that for our temporary workers because that's the means that they prefer. A lot of people won't answer a strange phone call. I won't either. Like I had New York call me yesterday. I'm not going to answer that. So, unless it's a local number, people won't normally pick up, if it's like one of our temporary workers. So we do text them, email them. For colleagues, we have people in the office here. We have people at other offices. So there's phone, email, in person. And then family, and friends, just usually phone, email, or in person is the normal for me personally.
Okay, well,
Nothing
I'd say for most of
I don't do anything like unique or special.
But there's a lot of different ways when you think about it, right? It's amazing. All right, let's jump to the next screen. Communication skills. Let's jump to the next one. We're going to talk specifically about a few of them. So this was one, this is one approach to looking at communication skills. So if you look at those 4 colored bubbles, thinking, listening, believe it or not, ladies, that is a communication skill. And I don't know about you, but I have to work hard at it. And I've had to learn over the years because quiet, shy me is a talker and I love to talk. And it's been really interesting to see, I really have to stop and listen to others. And I think, it's taken me a long time, but I've learned to do that and how important it is because people don't always want to listen to what we have to say. They want to be heard, right? We all want to be heard. We want to felt like we're being listened to and respected. Nonverbal. So that first screen I put up there with all the visuals of good morning. I didn't have to say a word to you, but I hope you got the message. I was saying, good morning, ladies. Happy Friday. Nonverbal. And think about other nonverbals. Think about right now, the way I can see all of you on the screen, which I love, by the way, your galleries. Thank you. That you're engaged. you know, that you're listening kind of and you're, you know, participating. And that's, you're not saying a word in some cases, but by the way you look, you know, my father used to hate it. I used to put my hands like this over my thing and he'd say, Maureen, put those arms down. You know, he thought it was really defensive. And it was like me sending a message to him that I was like, yes, Father, whatever. But, you know, it does by our nonverbals, the way we look. The other thing I used to do that he used to hate is, I don't know if any of you ever did this with your parents, but I used to roll my eyes. Like, yep, whatever. I'd be listening to what they were saying, but it was like, but it was a nonverbal. And my father used to say, stop. It's so rude what you're doing to me. You're rolling. And I was like, well, whatever. I wasn't saying anything bad to you. He's like, but you're rolling your eyes. So Shannon, you've got twins, you know, they do all these things.
We, at our house, we say, don't look at me in that tone of voice.
Look at me in that tone of voice.
When they're making those facial expressions.
Right? Okay, so it just happens. Our nonverbals are so important, you know, and I'm guilty of it too, and I try to get better because we're also into this virtual world, but how many times is someone speaking of you like in on a Zoom call or in a real live situation, and they're multitasking? Because what are most of us doing? What do we have in our hands? Like way too much. Yes, Shannon, exactly. Our cell phones. I've actually got two of them. I have a work one and another one, and I have them on all the time. And I'm guilty of it. Like someone be talking, I'm like, oh crap, responding. And they're like, hello, Maureen, could you put that down for a minute? I mean, I do it with my husband all the time. I'm like, do you want to hear what I'm saying or not? So like, it goes both ways, right? You got to kind of role model too, but it's part of our life. It's part of the way we communicate. And I think the expectations today of our communications is way different than it was 20 years ago. You know, it's instant. We get a text message. Heck, we don't let them sit a minute usually, right? Unless you're in some bizarre situation where you really can't. On the phone, we hate to let it go into voicemail. Like we like to pick it up. We want to answer it. We want to be checking our emails constantly. You're on Instagram, you're on Facebook, you're on Twitter, whatever. So, you know, all those different ways of communicating. And the last one's probably the most obvious is speaking. I think most of you ladies are really good at that. You seem to be great, you know, verbal communicators. But, you know, these are really the four areas. Sarah, if you had a look at these four, which one would you say that you do best? Which of these four areas do you feel, you know, you really do a great job of?
I'm definitely listening all the time. I'm not a speaker. If I have the choice, I'm always a listener.
I totally agree. That's exactly what I would have said about you. You're like one of the best listeners ever. Like you're such a great role model because you do. But when you speak, people want to listen because you don't really say a lot unless it's really meaningful and a contribution to the conversation. And I love that about you. That's such a great trait. What about anybody else on the call? What would you say is your strength area? Just unmute yourself and just say, don't be shy.
I'll speak. Mine is definitely the speaking. I'm kind of like you, Maureen. I like to talk, and sometimes I need to think and listen more. I definitely need to do those things more.
I'm a listener and a thinker.
Mm-hmm. I'm a thinker.
Thinker, Misty? Ah, that's great. Reflect and think before you speak.
Oh, I didn't say I think before I speak.
Oh.
I just said I'm constantly thinking.
Okay.
That was me, Maureen. I'm Hannah. I'm the thinker and the listener. And then Sarah, was that you? Sorry.
Sarah said she was a listener, yeah.
Sarah's the listener. Yeah, okay. I just wanted to make sure that I said the right person.
Exactly. I'm the person that if it's quiet, I'm uncomfortable. Like, what is going on? That's why I jumped up in your first slide, Maureen, because I was like, what's going on?
Right. And you know what, Shannon, if I was you, I probably would have too, but that was really intentional because I like to say, hey, good morning, instead of, I really wanted you guys to just look at those 5 or 6 different images. So it's really interesting when you think about it. So I would just encourage you hopefully all know what your 1 or 2 strengths are. And then you also know what the areas are maybe you need to work on and display a little bit more. And, you know, and it depends what kind of setting you're in too. You know, this is one setting, intimate setting with 6 of us or so on the call. You might be in a larger group. You might be in a one-on-one. And, you know, there's appropriateness for when you display some of these and when you don't. So, you know, if you're in a one-on-one, you pretty much got to speak up, right? If there's just two of you, where if you're in a bigger group and if there was 50 on this call, most of you probably wouldn't even participate in the presentation because it's not that type of setting. There wouldn't be a time for you to all speak. So you just got to think and be aware of your situation you're in. Let's jump to the next slide. So I thought this one was really just kind of a cool little visual again. So you can kind of just read through it. Are you open-minded when you're thinking before you communicate? Do you welcome feedback? Are you confident when you speak? And again, what are your nonverbals? What nonverbals do you send by the way you're looking at a person or not, or where your arms are placed, where you're standing, how you're sitting? You know, are you like this, like, oh God, please, lady, would you stop talking? Or are you, you know, kind of engaged? It's just all those nonverbals make such a difference. Let's jump to the next one. Okay, so tips for good communications. Be prepared when making a presentation. I don't care if it's to 6 people or 60 people. Be prepared. It will make a difference in how you communicate, how you present yourself. You could be having an interview, a one-on-one interview, or an interview with a panel of 10, or for an important conversation or meeting. You know, it was really important for me this morning to make sure my slides were all ready. I knew what I was going to say to you, ladies, and how I wanted you to be part of this presentation, engage, because it just really shows, you know, you want to engage everyone. To me, it's, you know, not fun if you're the only one talking all the time, and being a good communicator means you're thinking about those things and you're making a conscious effort to engage those that you're communicating with in the appropriate way based on the setting. How many of you would say, give me 5 if it's super, you do a great job with this, 4 if you're okay, 0 if you don't do a great job at all? How many of you would say you do a great job preparing for when you're going to be talking with someone in person, on the phone, on a Zoom call, or just meeting with someone? Show me a visual of your hands. 5 really strong. Okay, I see Misty, just 5. Great. Hannah, awesome. I can't see my screen right now. Sarah and...
we have Karina and Carol and Stacy.
Karina's on the call too, and Stacy. Should we stop for a minute and introduce those ladies since I didn't earlier?
Yes.
Let me scroll down. Oh, and Carol's on the phone too. Hi, Carol. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see you. And Karina, good morning to you.
Hi, Maureen. Good morning.
So ladies, I just want to introduce Karina to you because I think this is the first time you're all meeting her. I hired Karina September 1st, just a few weeks ago, to work with me as digital communications specialist at Energy United. So I'm hoping maybe she'll want to join your group and you'll allow her to join Surge.
I will send you an email at the end of the meeting.
All right, perfect.
And Allison, I haven't heard from you yet, but we will. We'll make sure you get engaged too.
And we have Stacy on the phone too from the Iredell County Rec, Parks and Rec.
Oh, great. So Stacy, you work with Michelle Hepler? Yes, she might be on mute, but yeah, ma'am, I see your note. Awesome. Fantastic. Okay, let's do the next.
She can't speak, but she chatted. Yes, she does work with Michelle.
Awesome. Okay, let's jump to the next slide. So we've talked a little bit about this. We know a few of you on the call, Sarah for sure, a few of you. Be a good listener. And again, this is probably my area that I've had the biggest opportunity to have to improve in over the years because I am a talker, I'm an extrovert. So I have to really make it an effort to listen. And it's hard at times because you want to get your thoughts out there and you want to say what you're thinking. But I've learned it's just as important, if not more important, to listen to what others are saying, because you can learn a lot from what others are saying, what they're feeling, their perspectives, and you might learn something from them too. So give me a thumbs up. How many of you think you need to work on your listening skills? And if you don't put your thumbs up because some of you are really good at it. Yeah, a couple of us do, right? Yep, and I see Stacy chimed in there. Yeah, most of us do. It's a tough skill. Okay, let's jump to the next one. Oh, I love this one. Do you all know who she is? Carol Johnson, you know who she is, don't you? That's Rosie, ladies. That, again, it outdates us. Carol and I are like mentors, I guess. But be confident. This was a great icon visual from probably back, I think, in the 50s and the 60s of a female who came out, and that was kind of her visual to be confident, Rosie the Riveter, and show that you are just as amazing and just as smart. And what was it all about back in the 50s, 60s? It was really when females and women were fighting to be competitive, right? In the workforce and starting to, have careers outside the home, above and beyond the nurses and the teachers that were so prominent back then. And this icon was plastered over all billboards and ads and magazines for a very, very long time, showing, hey, we can do this. We're just as smart as anyone else out there, as all the males in the world. So be confident. Doesn't matter what your age is, where you are, where you work, what you do, full-time mom at home, whatever. Be confident when you communicate, because it really does make a difference in how you present yourself. Okay, next slide. Be open, and this is another one I struggle with. Be open and willing to take feedback. Constructive criticism. It will help you grow and get better. So let's see, who hasn't shared? Allison, tell us about how you think you do in this area. Are you good at taking feedback and constructive criticism?
I have to say, out of everything we've talked about today, this is probably my strongest area. My parents always taught me not to be offended when someone gives you advice that could help you succeed or advance in life at any point. So my father always gave constructive criticism through my sports and my mom through my schooling. But without learning that, it wouldn't get me to where I am. So when it's a review from a supervisor or a superior in the chain of command, usually my tactic for that is not being offended when someone's giving that to you, but see it as something that can really help you shine and succeed, and taking it from that person's viewpoint of they want to see you do better, not always that they want to give you something that's negative or something that's hurtful to you, but it's really because they want to see you succeed, and that's what's going to help you get there. So when someone's giving you feedback, be open to that and don't be hurt by that. If someone says, you talk too much, don't take that as a negative. Say, okay, I just have to work on my listening. So as an example, but this is a good one. So I'm glad you called on me, because it can be, a downer for some people who are upset that they got that feedback or that constructive criticism, but you really have to switch your mindset to say, hey, this is something that's positive because that person wants to see me do better. They're giving me that feedback, and I can go ahead, channel that, and work on it.
Wow, Allison, I could not have said that any better. Oh my gosh, you just hit the nail on the head. So thank you for sharing that with us. Wow, you need to come and do this presentation with me, and that's yours. Does anyone have anything to add to that? Because I don't know what else there might be to add, but she gave some great examples, right? Positive and constructive criticism and feedback can help all of us. Be open to it. And you can get hurt. I know sometimes there's hurt feelings, right? We're females, we're emotional. And I think it's a good thing, because we take things personally, we take it to heart because we care. And if we didn't care about what others thought of us, we'd kind of shrug it off and it'd be like, whatever, say whatever you want. I don't really care. But I think, we care, so we do listen. And I think for me, it's like at the end of the day, or maybe over the weekend, I'll sit and go, wow, what did she just say to me the other day? And maybe she's got a point. Maybe I do need to work on this, or maybe I need to change my ways or do things a little differently. So as Allison said, it's just going to help you become a better person and grow. So be open to it. So I encourage you to do that as you move forward in your young careers and continue to grow. Okay, next slide. This is important too. The next tip is be sincere. People can sense when you are faking it. I don't know what else to say about that. Does anyone want to chime in? Have you ever had someone say something to you and it was like, really? Like, you didn't mean that. Why'd you just say it? You're just saying it for the sake of it? Versus someone who says, you know what, Karina, wow, you look great this morning. I love the color of your lipstick. You look fantastic for a Friday morning. I mean, like there's a sincere things that we say versus, oh yeah, Shannon, you look great this morning. Like, you know, really? Just because you hear it in the tone of my voice? Yeah, you look great this morning. Like, what the heck? Get yourself together. Like, it just, that tone sometimes you make when you're communicating. And that's, you know, so important too. I always say it's not necessarily what you say, but often how you say it. And it can truly make a difference in the delivery of things. Be sincere. Does anyone have an example they wanted to share about when they felt like someone wasn't being sincere to them, to you? It's okay if you don't. It's a hard one, right?
It's not necessarily like an example, but I think like sarcasm fits in here. And so like when I, like my current supervisor, when I like first met her, because I started out as an intern at Mitchell, and then moved into the current role that I'm in. And so like we very quickly like realized that we both communicate in fluent sarcasm. And so sometimes when people see us communicate, they're like, oh, or like, oh, but in reality, like that's just how we are. And so sometimes I have to be very conscious and very mindful of like my sincerity in the way that I say things, because I may be in a situation like with Shannon or Maureen or Allison or Karina where something just comes out and I'm like, oh, hold on. And I've had to apologize before. And I just know that about me. And so that's another piece I think that fits in here is sincerity and just kind of being mindful of like sarcasm and just being authentic whenever you communicate.
Hannah, that was a great example. You're absolutely right. And I'm glad you brought up the sarcasm thing, because my husband does that with me sometimes. And he'll say something, I'll look at him like, are you kidding me? He's like, Maureen, really? I was only kidding. And I was only joking around. I was like, well, you didn't sound like you were kidding with me. So it is that sarcasm. It's so true. And yes, Hannah, you said it very well. Thank you. So be sincere, ladies. Be sincere when you're communicating, be it in person, via a text, an email, whatever, because people can sense when you're not being sincere.
Hey, Maureen, before you switch to the next one, I think texting's a really good one to bring up, because I sometimes struggle. I send off a quick answer and it's just because I'm busy, but then I look back and I thought, did that sound like I was mad or upset, or did they take it wrong? Because, you know, you're trying to just answer something fast, but at the same time you realize, did it come off too short? Because the response you might get back is like, did they take that very wrongly? So I think that's a whole different type of communication where to me, texting is that quick response, but sometimes people get offended by your lack of, you know, words in that response. So I've had to go back later and say, I'm so sorry, I was at Hobby Lobby checking out and I couldn't talk, or I couldn't send a quick note, but here's the full blah, 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 you know, after that. So
I'm so glad you brought that up, because I think we're probably all a little guilty of that. I couldn't agree more. I've had to learn in my emails, and I know we want them to be short and succinct, and we're not supposed to go on and on with too many details, but the communicator comes out of me, and I think about that all the time. So sometimes I type in too much, and I put, and Sarah does too, we do little smiley faces back and forth, because sometimes it just shows, wow, you're like, you mean it in a really happy, positive way. So does anyone else have a story about email or texting where you've been maybe interpreted or perception from the other end was your email was taken the wrong way and it got you in a situation you didn't want to be in? Anyone? Come on. Well, you're lucky if it hasn't happened to you then. Either that or you're just all being really quiet. But I would encourage you to think about that, because Shannon's absolutely right. We represent ourselves in text messages and emails. And if you're trying to be sincere and you're not, maybe put those little smiley faces or ha-has or whatever it is, because people otherwise could misinterpret what you're saying. Okay, next slide. A couple more here just to wrap up of a few more tips for you. Again, here we go. Miscommunications. Has this ever happened to you? So let's flip to the next one. I think it has happened to all of us. I think, you know, we just want to say one thing and we say it, but it's maybe not exactly perceived by the other person or persons the way we intended it to do, right? Thumbs up if that's ever happened to you. Probably most of us, right? So I love this visual. I found that it's also talking about another way of miscommunicating. You know, how many of you, if you remember maybe back in school or even as adults in some of these leadership classes, you sit around in a circle and they say, okay, you start and whisper a message in someone's ear. And then you have to say the message to the next person and then they have to repeat it. And what happens? What happens, Misty, by the time the message starts and I have a message and it gets around 12 people to the end, is it the exact same message that it started as?
No, absolutely not.
Right? It usually isn't.
Hey, I'm going to brag on Allison's program with Girls on the Run. That's one of our exercises that we do with the girls when you're with the coaches and the girls is to do that, because we talk a lot about bullying and how you can say one thing and by the time it gets around, it's something totally different.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we do that. And it's never the same message, ever.
We make sure that we don't play the game of telephone is what we call it. We don't like the game of telephone. That's what we've always related it back to. You know, make sure when you're communicating that message to somebody else that, I don't know, we try to loop them into the conversation or, you know, make sure they're at least CC'd on an email so the message isn't, you know, kind of skewed. Or if we have staff who wants to deliver based on their program initiatives and the information that they gathered, let them deliver it instead of you. Make sure that they're front and center to that information. So, and we teach the girls that too. The game of telephone's never fun, so try not to play that game too much.
I love that, Allison. Absolutely. You guys, like, you're on top of some of this stuff. You've been part of these situations, right? And you've seen the miscommunications because it happens all the time. For me, I don't know when this exactly happened, but the verbal communications usually tend to get more misinterpreted and twisted. But can it happen in an email? Sarah's nodding her head. Yep, it can. Stacy, can it happen in an email? Can it happen in a text?
She can only text. She can only chat.
That's right. That's right. And Hannah, I know you're on the call too. I mean, it happens, right? It happens to all of us. So I encourage you to, especially ladies, when you're communicating email and text, how many of you have had a situation that it's maybe been more of an emotional based response than a fact based business decision response? And you're emotional about something that was said to you in an email? I encourage you, don't hit that send button right away. Wait an hour or two. If you can wait longer, come back to it, reread it, let your emotions die down. Because I think sometimes, and I'm guilty of it too, you respond to something. I think if we're live and in person, we do it right away. But in emails, I honest to goodness did this yesterday. If something happened, I typed up this huge 5-paragraph explanation because I was so bothered by something that somebody said. And I said, Maureen, hold off, don't send that email. It's very emotional based right now. And I think when they get it on the other end, they're gonna see that. So I did, I waited, and by last night, I retyped the entire thing and sent it. So I encourage you to do that too, because that's another way you could maybe send a message to someone and it might be a little sarcastic and you don't even know that it is, or a little unsincere. So I just encourage you, hold off, put it in a holding pattern, minimize it. Because you're going to probably come back a little later and you're going to think about it and you're going to reread it and go, yeah, I probably should reword that. Has that happened to any of you? I see a couple of nods of the head. Yep, I think it happens to all of us. Okay, next slide. We're going to wrap up here with just a few more tips. I love this one though. That's great.
All right.
Yeah, this one we've talked about. Practice listening, not always talking. That's just another reminder here. Some of us are better than that than others of us are. Karina, how would you say you're at with that? How do you do with listening and versus not always talking?
Right. Yeah, I think I'm more like yourself, Maureen. I always prefer to be the one communicating rather than listening. So it's obviously something I could improve on. One thing I struggle with a lot is trying to think of my response while they're speaking and not always listening to what they're saying to me. So I would say it's definitely something I need to really practice on. I mean, I think everyone does. Not everyone can be a great listener at all times. But I think, you know, when you listen, you show you care, because like we talked about, those nonverbal cues, people can tell, like they can see that you're like out in the distance, or that you're not really paying attention to them. So I think it's very important.
Well, thanks for sharing that, Karina. I think you hit the nail on the head when you said how often, and I'm guilty of this too, we're so often listening, thinking about something else or how we're going to respond, that we stop listening because we're in our head trying to process our response, right? It's human nature. So it's a skill to work on that. So thanks for sharing. Okay, next slide. This is just another visual. And again, afterwards, if you want these slides, email me or Shannon. I'd be glad to share any of these with you. But another way of looking at tips for communications, again, share the floor. That means it's not all about you. It's not all about me. Let others have a voice in the conversation. Keep focused. Take care of yourself. That's a great one too. Kind of goes back to that being confident. You know, take care of yourself. Be prepared for the conversation wherever you are, whatever environment that you're in. Embrace differences. I love that one. You know, I think in today's world, we're all probably more conscientious of that than ever before, trying to be really respectful. And to me, that's so important, because it's not, you know, my ideas are not the best. My ideas are not the only ones. I can learn. I know that. I get the best ideas from people I work with, from the team I'm working with, anywhere, be it at Rotary, the Chamber, at Energy United. Respect others, respect their differences, engage their ideas, because ladies, it's going to make whatever project you're working on or whatever issue you're trying to resolve, trust me, it's going to help you come up with a better solution. You're going to get other ideas from other people. The respect, the confidentiality. How many times have we started a conversation and say, oh, okay, I'm going to tell you something, but you got to promise you're not going to tell anybody else. Keep it a secret, just between us. Well, you really better know who you're saying that to and talking to. I wouldn't do it on a phone call with 17 people, unless it's something I truly didn't care if anyone repeated. And you got to really know who and what you're saying who to, and who you can trust. And you're going to learn pretty quick in life who the people are you can trust and who that you can't trust. But whenever in doubt and you're sharing anything confidential, hold back and don't share it. Keep it to yourself, because it could be a negative consequence or outcome for you. And if someone that wasn't supposed to hear what you were supposed to have kept confidential, that someone confided you in, it could come back to haunt you. And I don't know about you, it's happened to me. I've learned the tough way. For those of you that haven't had that experience, learn from us that have. Keep things confidential that you've been asked to keep confidential. Does anyone have anything to add to that? Okay. And there's just a few more down there. Know your stuff again. That's be confident when you're presenting, sharing, going to an interview, going to a meeting of 2 or 10. Just be prepared for the meeting. Read the agenda, do whatever you need to do to be prepared. And lastly, respect people's times, which I'm going to do and wrap this up in a few minutes, because I know you all have other things to talk about today before we end. And Stacy says, thank you. I've got to run to another meeting. Stacy, it was great to see you. Okay, next slide. Again, in closing, listen, understand, hear. And I know there's a few of you on the call, Sarah included, Hannah, a few of you that do a really, really great job of this. And for those of us that need to improve, you master these skills in your communication in life, and you're gonna see a big difference, because people don't like people who talk all the time and know everything. They want people that are gonna listen to them. They're gonna feel respected. They're gonna feel like they've been heard and that they've been understood. And I always say, and I say this in my professional life and my personal life, we don't have to agree on things. But what I do expect is that I'm going to respect your perspective, your opinion, even if I don't agree with it. I want to be very respectful. And, you know, I think that's just something we all need to do. Show respect for one another. It's not that you always have to be on the same page or agree. That's not how life works. But be respectful. And the next slide is, in closing here, good communications, ladies, doesn't happen overnight. It takes practice, kind of like in the old school days with the chalkboard. I know a few of us on the call can relate to this. Carol, you can probably relate to it, writing 1,000,000 times for homework. I will effectively communicate with others. I will effectively, it's so true. The message here is yes, doesn't happen overnight, takes time. So just every day, think about things that you personally can do to be a better communicator, and you will be. And you'll know it because you'll feel it with your colleagues and with your friends when you're having conversations, and when you're in group settings or one-on-one setting, you'll know the difference. You'll know you're improving in whatever area it is that you need to improve in. So I ask you in closing, and you don't have to respond to this, but I just want you to think about it. What are your strengths and what areas do you need to improve in? And, over the next several days, weeks, I hope, some of these tips have helped you, and you're going to think about maybe an area that you need to work on. We all have areas to work on, and how you might be able to do things just a little bit differently in the future as you think about your communication skills. So in closing, again, the best communicators are those that listen, hear, think, and understand. And then they respond and share. I was guilty for years of the opposite. I would jump right down to responding, sharing my thoughts, my feelings, without ever thinking or really reflecting on what the person had just said to me. I would jump in instantly. And it wasn't a good trait of mine. You really need to stop and do that listening, thinking before you respond and share, and you'll see a world of difference. So it's time to say good morning was earlier, now it's happy Friday. Here's the non-visual, the non-verbal. I'm not supposed to be talking, but take a look. I hope one of those resonate with you. I hope you ladies do have a fabulous Friday. And a great weekend, and that you keep in touch. Shannon has my email. I'm sure she'll share it with any of you that don't have my email. Would love to, see you again. I hope, Allison, you'll come and, speak to our Rotary group, or any of you on the call, but any of your businesses would love to keep in touch with you. And again, if you want these slides, I'd be glad to share them. So that's it. I think any questions for me or comments?
Maureen, I have one, which fantastic job. I love this. I think it's a great reminder at this point in careers for everybody, for communication tips and things you just don't think about on a daily basis. The one thing I was thinking about as we were going through here, and this is self-reflecting for myself, but might help everyone else out too, is facial expressions. I am very guilty of what I am feeling going to my face. So if that's really excited, or what did she just say? My face reflects that. And I've had to really learn to tone that back, because you can read what I'm thinking all over my face. My husband will tell you, oh, I know what she's thinking before she even has to say anything. So just being aware of facial expressions in conversations. A smile says a lot to people when you're walking in a room, or, and especially the slide about being fake. You can tell by a person's face what they're thinking or feeling. So just being aware of facial expressions, that's from self-reflecting for myself, leaving this call today, to remember that as well.
Oh, great, Allison. Thanks for sharing that. That's so true. You're right. It's all over our face. The rolling of the eyes. My dad used to tell me, I said a million words. I wasn't verbally saying anything, but I was sending a message. And I think most of us do that. Maybe some of you don't. Maybe some of you have mastered that, but thanks for sharing that. It was great to see you all, ladies.
Thanks, Maureen.
Talk with you and share. And again, keep in touch. If I can ever do anything for any of you, I'd love to.
Well, we're going to wrap up. And again, thank you, Maureen, on behalf of Surge and our action team that puts this together, and Hannah, who's our amazing program chair for Surge. Next month is October, and we're going to do a social, and we're just going to meet up at Fourth Creek Brewery after work, after 5, and there's no formal plan. It's just to meet up and see each other in person. We try to do that once a quarter, so all of you are invited, and bring a friend. Hannah, anything else that you want to, that we need to say or close up? Okay. Thanks, Maureen. Everybody have a great day.
Bye.